Chinese pilot Wang Wei is still going on. Wang Wei's fighter jet crashed after colliding with the U.S. plane, but the pilot managed to parachute out. Local government and army troops sent around 30 ships and 37 planes to the site where the jet crashed. The weather is windy, and in some places, waves are 3 meters high. The search is very difficult. The pilot's whereabouts are still unknown.
The mid-air collision has aroused the concern of many Chinese. Our reporter Liu Xin talked to people in the street and asked them about their reactions to the incident.
The overall tone is one of indignation.
The
United States is being hegemonic, thinking they can do whatever they want anywhere. This, together with past incidents, show they've stretched their legs too far. We should be tough on the matter.
I think everyone shares the same sentiment now, one of anger. We should stand up for our rights and interests.
We should launch strong protests to the U.S. We are entitled to hold the intruding American crew.
Some show concern while hoping the government can handle the issue properly.
I think the U.S. plane is to blame. It violated our airspace, which is clearly an act of hegemony and chauvinism. I hope the matter can be dealt with in a serious manner.
Our plane was defending China's airspace. Now the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has protested to the U.S. We fully support the government's stance.
Many have demanded an acceptable explanation from the U.S. government. Liu Xin, CCTV.
You're watching CCTV International, coming to you from Beijing. Stay with us. More news still ahead. China's premier calls for more tweaking of the nation's market economy to correct problems and maintain order. And Chinese historians slammed Japan's revisions to textbooks, saying the changes distort history.
CCTV 9 is China's only English-language channel, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, CCTV 9 is currently carried on cable networks in Beijing.
Welcome back. In other news here at home, more effort should be put into rectifying problems and maintaining order in China's market economy. Premier Zhu Rongji made that comment this week at a national meeting on standardizing market practices. During the 3-day conference, he also called for tougher punishment on economic crimes and financial abuse. Pei Jian has the details.
Zhu Rongji said, the degree of economic order is a measure of the national economy's health. He said it also reflects how developed the legal system is, as well as the level of social and economic management. He called for tougher and more effective measures to spot illegal practices in the market economy. Those include tax evasion, scooping up foreign exchange, smuggling, embezzlement, financial fraud, and poor quality construction projects. He called on governments at all levels to make this task a priority in the next 5 years. The premier said the key in maintaining order in the market economy is to reach consensus among government officials. Pei Jian, CCTV.
Top Chinese legislator Li Peng held talks with visiting Cambodian King Sihanouk and Queen Mananeet Sihanouk in Beijing on Wednesday. They agreed to increase cooperation and strengthen bilateral relations. Once again, here's Pei Jian.
At the meeting, National People's Congress Chairman Li Peng welcomed Cambodian King Sihanouk and his wife. He said China highly values its long-lasting friendship with Cambodia. Li Peng added, China will adhere to joint statements signed during President Jiang Zemin's Cambodian visit last year. The communiques set as a priority the strengthening of bilateral relations. King Sihanouk said he also hopes to continue high-level visits between the two countries. They agreed to more cooperation in various fields and to making more efforts towards regional peace and development. The king is in China for a regular medical checkup. 裴健 CCTV。
China's Foreign Minister Tang Jiaxuan met with Japanese Ambassador to China, Anami Koreshiga, Wednesday. Tang Jiaxuan protested the Japanese government's approval of a new history book written by Japanese right-wing scholars. Tang Jiaxuan said China strongly demands Japan take immediate measures to reduce negative impacts and faithfully honor its serious commitments regarding historical truth. He said China also urged Japan to stop release of the textbook, which denies and whitewashed the history of the Japanese aggression. Tang Jiaxuan noted publication of the book might harm Japan's relations with China and its Asian neighbors. He said China had expressed a disapproval of the textbook ever since this issue emerged. Japan gave the green light to the textbook, regardless of China's standpoint. Japan plans to put the textbook into use in middle schools from April 2002. A group of Chinese historians held a symposium on Wednesday in Beijing where they condemned Japan's distortion of history in a new textbook. Also in Beijing, a history museum is displaying gruesome evidence of the Japanese Army's atrocities in World War II. Zhu Hua has more.
Chinese university professors and historians at a symposium strongly protested against Japan's new history textbook, which omits atrocities committed by the Japanese army and refers to the army as valiant. Its display of over 10,000 items is silent but convincing evidence of the army's brutality. Many of these pieces were donations from former Japanese soldiers in the war. Items include graphic photos showing Japanese soldiers holding bloody swords next to Chinese victims and half-naked women after being raped. Since the museum opened in 1995, over 150,000 Japanese tourists have seen the exhibit, including 3 former Japanese prime ministers. Many of them said they would never forget the truth of history. Zhu Hua, CCTV.
Corresponding with China's reaction, the Republic of Korea also strongly protested a new Japanese history textbook written by nationalist historians. South Korean officials expressed deep regret over the matter and urged Japan to reconsider authorizing the book. Li Maoxi reports.
South Korean Foreign Ministry spokesman Lim Nam-soo blamed the new Japanese textbook for rationalizing and glorifying Japan's past wrongdoings. He said the South Korean government expressed its deep regret and would take further measures to protest. The textbook has provoked some South Korean citizens to attack related Japanese internet sites. Hackers temporarily shut down the Japanese Education Ministry's website last Saturday. South Korean civic groups were also enraged and vowed to protest against the revised textbook. Many historians also criticized the textbook as a Japanese imperialistic view of history. South Korea says the new textbook does not illuminate many seamy aspects of Japan's 35-year occupation of the Korean peninsula, including the fact that Koreans were forced to use the Japanese language and pledge loyalty to its emperor. The textbook does not mention either that Japan forced 200,000 women, mostly from Korea, to be sex slaves for the imperial army during the war. Li Maoxi, CCTV.
A Sudanese military plane crashed in southern Sudan on Wednesday, killing 15 people, including Defense Ministry official Ibrahim Shams Aden. The plane crash happened at Adail Airport during a reconnaissance mission in the south. The mission involved reviewing conditions of the government's armed forces in the area. It is not clear whether the plane went down accidentally or in a premeditated attack by rebels. In a further sign of the humiliation of the Milosevic clan, Mira Markovic has been refused special treatment at the prison where her husband, Slobodan Milosevic, is being held. Meanwhile, a Serb government negotiator has revealed the details of his tense 10-hour talks with the former president that led to his surrender. Here's Li Maoxi with the details.
For the first time, the vehicle of the former First Lady of Yugoslavia was not even allowed